Hello, my beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Heart Podcast. I am your host, Tabitha, and in today's episode, it is one that I've been both excited and nervous to share with you guys. It's deeply personal, and it's about something that has shaped every part of who I am, my story, and how I've used art to tell it. And it's one of the reasons why I started the Hearts Academy in the first place, because art has been such a profound way of me connecting with my own story. And I really am quite passionate about other people using the same techniques in order to unblock and unlock parts of themselves. So, if you've ever felt like your life has been marked by loss, or you've lost touch with your purpose, or even like you're just going through the motions of life, and everyone does get to this point at one point or another because life is messy. This episode is for you because today we're going to be talking about how art can help us process our emotions, reconnect with ourselves, and ultimately tell our stories in a way that allows us to heal. This isn't just about creating something beautiful, it's about creating something true. And for me, that journey began originally with loss. So, when I was 16, I lost my little sister to a terminal illness. She was 13 at the time and she had been sick for a really long time. It was the kind of loss that leaves a hole in your heart and one that makes you feel like you're just never going to heal. It wasn't something that I had expected to deal with as, as in my youth. It was huge. And I didn't know how to process what I was feeling. I didn't have the words. I actually ended up developing anorexia when I was 16 because I was keeping all of that inside of me and I wasn't harnessing those emotions. So what I did have at this time though is I had creativity. I don't know how I tapped into it. I don't know whether it was an art teacher. I don't quite know how it happened, but somehow I managed to start painting and it happened almost unconsciously. So at first, I just started drawings and I started drawing sunflowers and drawing birds while I was in the hospital with my sister over the time that she was dying. But over time, the colors started to take shape and they became landscapes and they became figures and they became abstract expressions of all of the emotions that I just couldn't put into words. And at that time in my life, art became my safe space, which is something that I hope people get from the Hearts Academy, that I hope people can harness this safe space without judgment, because it was the place that I could go where I felt like I could feel everything and I could release everything without having to talk about it. Because sometimes talking about things is much harder than just releasing it in an unconscious way. So it became a place where I could remember my sister, where I could remember her when she was full of life and she was full of laughter and she was full of love. And I think when I look back, I realize that art ultimately is something that saved me. It gave me this massive way of processing my grief and honoring my sister and finding just this tiny glimmer of something where I could process my emotions as a 16-year-old who was full of hormones and craziness and not quite even in a state of mind that I knew how to process these things. So it was a really important part of my life. But life, as we all know it, has a way of pulling us away from the things that help us. And as I grew older, I threw myself into my work. I built my career as an artist. I built this amazing business, which I love so, so much. And I got totally involved in the hustle culture. But somewhere along the way, I lost the mindfulness that had made art so healing for me. And everything became about deadlines. It became about clients and Instagram likes and social media, which is something that I absolutely hate. But it's obviously very necessary for running a business. And I lost the art of expressing myself. I lost the art of finding peace in conscious design of my life because I wasn't consciously designing my life. Life was just, controlling me. So last year I had, most people that follow my business know I had a pretty devastating year because I lost my dad to terminal cancer and I sustained quite a serious injury, which left me unable to work for quite a long time. I'm still recovering from that injury. I still struggle quite a lot with some things, and I had to learn to use my leg again, which it was only a minor injury, but it was a massive injury in a lot of ways. And I guess in the moments that happened, it felt like the whole universe was just forcing me to stop. It was forcing me to slow down. It was forcing me to breathe again, which is something that I hadn't done for the longest time. So ultimately, it was the biggest blessing because during that time, I couldn't return to art as a job anymore. And I had to go back to the space where it was a meditative practice for me. It wasn't something that I could create for people anymore because I didn't have the capacity to do that. And so I started tapping in again to painting, but not for anyone else, just for myself, and tapping back into the meditative way that you connect with conscious design when you actually use it as a way of slowing down. So, and in those quiet moments that I found, I actually began to reconnect with the mindfulness that had been missing in my life for so long. So as I said, it was a huge blessing for me that this all happened, even though ultimately it was disguised as something really awful, which it was at the same time. There's always a blessing in there. So by slowing down and being present in my emotions and my creativity, I was actually able to find my way back to myself and ultimately find my way back to why I loved art in the beginning, why I love design, why I love conscious design, and what a powerful way that is to tell your story. So art has this incredible power to tell our stories in a way that words can't. It allows us to express the parts of ourselves that feel too big or too messy or too fragile to say out loud. And in doing so, it helps us heal. When I paint now, I'm not just creating something beautiful. I'm telling my story. I'm telling other people's story. I'm connecting to what's going on in the world. This is something that's always really important to me in my fine art practice of what I do as a fine artist is I always want it to be a story. I want it to unlock something. I want it to connect with people because that's ultimately what art is for me. So some people, when they do art, it connects to their grief, it connects to their love, it connects to loss. And that's in every single brush stroke, every single mark that you make. And through that process, I have found a massive sense of peace and purpose that I never thought possible. So you don't actually have to be an artist in order to use art to tell your story. This is just me talking about my own story. You just have to be willing to create and not judge yourself. And so if you're painting or you're drawing or you're mark making, the act of creating is all that matters because it's an unconscious way for you to tap into your emotions and to release that. And that's what the Hearts Academy is about for me. I want to give people that gift because it helped me so much in my life in so many different ways. And I don't believe you need to be an artist to do that. So how can you tell your story through art? I want to invite you now to do this for yourself. And I've created a free workshop, which I will post on my website or post somewhere on this podcast. But this is just a really basic exercise that you can do. So first of all, I want you to set the scene. If you were in the Hearts Academy, we would be doing a grounding practice, something where you're aligning with your energy. But you could just find a quiet space where you can be alone with your thoughts, play some music. I've got some playlists which I put up on Spotify for people that are a part of the Hearts Academy, and these are all frequency music. But I want you to do whatever makes you feel grounded. You're going to grab a medium, and that can be something really simple. It can be a pen and a paper. It doesn't have to be paint. It doesn't have to be markers. It could be your kids' crayons. It's not about creating a masterpiece. It's about expressing yourself. And one of the biggest things you've got to do is take yourself away from feeling like you've got to create a masterpiece, because that's where the magic happens. I want you to close your eyes and think about your own story. I want you to think about what emotions you might be carrying. I want you to think about the moments that have shaped you, and I want you to let those feelings guide your hand. I want you to start making marks on the page, to not overthink it, and just let your emotions flow through your hands and onto the paper. And I want you to keep doing that until you feel like you want to stop. And you can do that every day. You can do that every morning for a week. You can journal about it afterwards. You can talk about what it was that you saw when you drew. You can talk about how it makes you feel. You can not talk about it if you don't want to talk about it at all, because that's also really powerful, to just make without having to analyze it. And that's the really beautiful thing about creating, is that it's made without judgment, and it's made there for you to just have a medium to harness your energy. So if you enjoy this, or you think this is something that could help you, I'd really like to see you in the Hearts Academy. It's only a small amount that I charge every month for these exercises. I think it's $20 New Zealand per month. And it's just a space for people that might be dealing with some stuff, that might just want to harness creativity in their life, that might want to connect creatively. It's just a really beautiful space. I want to thank everyone so much for joining me today. This episode was one of the most personal I've ever shared, and I hope it resonated with someone. I hope if there's anyone listening in the audience and you might have felt lost, or like you're carrying a story that feels too heavy to tell, I want you to know that you are not alone. And I want you to know that art can be your safe space, just as it has been for me. And if you love this episode, please share it with a friend, leave a review, or tag me on social media. I would love to hear about how you are using art to tell your own story or unlock your own emotions. Until next time, please keep creating with intention, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Hearts Podcast.